The night the alien returned felt nothing like the night he first crashed into my life. The sky wasn't angry, the wind wasn't screaming, and there was no flash of blinding light tearing through the clouds. Instead, everything was calm. Calm in a way that didn't feel natural. I remember standing outside my small cabin, staring at the horizon. The sun had just slipped behind the mountains, leaving a purple haze drifting across the sky. Birds had gone silent. Even the insects had stopped their endless buzzing. It was the kind of silence that makes you feel watched, not by a person, but by the world itself. I didn't know why I felt uneasy, until the ground under my feet vibrated. Not violently, just enough to let me know something was coming. And then I heard it, that low, almost musical hum. The same sound I heard the night I found him the first time. A sound that didn't belong to any machine or creature from Earth. And before I could even react, he stepped out of the tree line. The alien. The one I thought I'd never see again. The one whose blood had stained my hands when I carried him into my home months earlier. Except this time, he wasn't wounded. He wasn't weak. He wasn't dying. He stood taller, brighter, and more powerful than I had ever seen him, his skin glowing faintly like moonlit metal, his eyes shimmering with something deeper than emotion, something ancient. But when he looked at me, he didn't speak the way he usually did, directly into my mind. He actually walked toward me, slowly, like he was choosing his words carefully. "You have questions," he said, his voice softer than I remembered. "And I have returned because the answers cannot wait any longer." I didn't know what to feel. Fear, relief, confusion, gratitude. But before I could say anything, he raised his hand, not to threaten me, to show me something. A pulse of light flickered across his palm, and suddenly the air around me shifted. The shadows of the trees stretched long and thin, like they were pointing somewhere, guiding me towards something. "What are you showing me?" I asked. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he said something that made my stomach knot. "The test has begun." I stepped back. "Test? What test?" He turned his head toward the sky. The stars were just beginning to appear. "The final one," he whispered. I felt my heartbeat quicken. I'd heard him talk about warnings before. I'd heard him mention consequences, but never this. Never something so final. Before I could speak, he continued. "Our kind does not return to a world unless the timeline shifts, unless the events ahead begin to repeat the patterns that destroyed others before you." My throat tightened. "Destroyed others? What do you mean?" He looked at me with eyes that held an entire galaxy's worth of memory. "Humanity is not the first civilization to rise, and it is not the first to stand at the edge of its own undoing." I swallowed hard. "So you came back to warn us again?" "No," he said, quietly. "I came back because your species is already inside the test." Those words chilled me more than the cold night air. "Then tell me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What exactly is the test?" He walked past me, his footsteps silent on the dirt, then placed his hand on the wooden rail of my porch, the same place he lay dying months ago. He spoke without turning. "It is the test of truth." I frowned. "Truth about what?" He finally turned to face me again. "Truth about yourselves." At first, the answer seemed too simple, too vague. But the longer he stayed silent, the more I realized how heavy that statement was. He continued, "Your world is filled with knowledge, but starving for understanding. You have information, but not wisdom. You have voices, but no listeners.
You have beliefs, but no unity. He stepped toward me again. The test is not one event. It is not one disaster. It is not one prophecy. It is a series of choices made by billions of individuals who do not realize that their decisions ripple outward, colliding into a future that is not yet fixed. I exhaled shakily. And what happens if humanity fails this test? The alien didn't hesitate. Your species will survive, he said, but your humanity will not. I felt that sentence hit harder than anything else he had ever told me. Then tell me how to fix it, I whispered. He looked at me with something close to sadness. I cannot give you answers. That is part of the test. I clenched my jaw. Then why come back at all? He closed his eyes briefly, and for the first time, I saw something like pain cross his face. Because you tried, he said. When others would have walked away, you helped me. You saved me. You chose empathy over fear. He lifted his hand again. A small, glowing sphere hovered above his palm. This is memory, a fragment of what we have witnessed, of what your world must not repeat. The sphere drifted toward me until it hovered inches from my forehead. I didn't move, couldn't move. Then images flashed into my mind. A world that looked like Earth but wasn't. Cities floating above oceans. Skies filled with lights that weren't stars. And then ruin, fire, silence. A planet collapsing under its own creation. I snapped back, gasping for breath. What was that? He said. Another world, one that failed the test before you. I shook my head. But our world isn't like that. We're not destroying ourselves. He stepped closer. You are, he said gently. Not with war, not with weapons, but with fear, division, lies, and the illusion that you are separate from one another. He stared at me intensely. That is the truth humanity must face. You are one species, acting like many. My voice trembled. Is that why you came back? To show me that?